And we talked about this last podcast. I always have a what I'm doing self versus what I should be doing self, so that whenever my thoughts pop into my head, we mentioned this last podcast too. You have 70,000 thoughts per day, right? So I have to grab a hold of the 5,000 or the 10,000 good thoughts, whatever the case, whatever the number is, right? I grab a hold of those good thoughts, and whenever a bad intrusive thought comes into my head, I reinforce myself by reminding myself, hey, you're still him. You know what I mean? Like that pimp. You lost, but you're still him. Yeah, you didn't get as much shit done today, but you're still him. You're still doing good. You're still working out. I'm injured right now. I'm still okay. You know what I mean? All that kind of stuff. I didn't get the podcast finished yesterday. I had to finish this morning. Guess what? It still got done. You know what I mean? Before, maybe a couple months back, I would have been really stressed out and maybe not got a good sleep over that because I didn't finish it on Thursday. But I trusted in myself that I was going to wake up early, exactly, and put myself in the position that where I can succeed. I feel like trusting yourself goes further than just trusting yourself. You obviously have to put the action to the thought or whatever the case. But I feel like that's a big thing, and I struggle with it all the time. I barely trusted myself until just recently, and now the podcast, the conversations I'm having with you guys, the level that I'm at when happiness, all that kind of stuff, sky high.
So to add a little extra layer on top of that, I just want to ask you guys each a question. Like, if you had to put it into a percentage, how much would you say you trust yourself out of 100%? What's the number?
I'd say it's pretty high.
I think so
Well,
too.
put a number to it. High is not a number.
That's a tough
So
one.
let's take a second.
I'm gonna say I'm 3/4 of the way there, so 75%.
75%. What about you?
I would say like in and around there. I say like 85.
But I'm gonna say this for myself before I ask you. That other 25 is strong. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like,
That other 25 is strong. Them negative thoughts will always be stronger than positive thoughts, in my personal opinion. You know what I'm saying? So that 25 is really like a 50, but it's only 75. You know what I'm saying? I'm only thinking negative 25% of the time, but when I do, it's like, well,
Yeah.
that thing is coming at me.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying, for sure. And see, I kind of like the way I grew up. I learned to just trust 100% faith in myself. So I would say that I'm at that number. I'm definitely maybe not a total 100%, but in the 90s, anywhere up there, they're all the same essentially. And I don't think anybody will ever trust themselves 100%.
No, you're always gonna have a little self-doubt.
Maybe actually, but once you're super old,
Yeah.
once you're like 60, 50s, you've lived, you've experienced, you actually have some type of life to draw information from, then you might trust yourself 100%.
You gotta admire the elders like that. You know what I mean? I see the guys at the gym too that when they talk, they're just so at peace and so nothing is worrying them, and I'm like, wow.
And that reminds me of something. I seen this old interview of Mac Miller, and he was in a park, and he's like, if you could be this interview was like, if you could be anybody in this park, you'd be. And he looked at the old folks that were just sitting there enjoying their day, right? You know how they do, sit on the bench and just stare blankly into the sky. And he's like, I want to be them, because they sit there in silence, and they're not anxious. They're just calm. They're enjoying life for every second, every breath, every wind that gusts across their face. Because they've built that trust in themselves. They can relax now. They don't have to be worried about, oh, am I working enough? Oh, do I have enough money? Can I support myself? They don't have those worries because the trust built up over all of those years, it's not even in their head anymore. They're just, okay, I'm just living life.
No, for sure.
And that's kind of like the thing that I wanted to bring. Everybody should get to that form of trust where you obviously you're conscientious about the things that you need to do in life, but you're not worried about them. You know that they'll get done. And that's a very hard thing for a lot of people to do, because a lot of people are, and like, I guess laziness is good in a way, but laziness is most of the time I feel you just don't trust yourself enough to do the task that you want to do. So you be lazy to avoid the fact that you don't trust yourself to necessarily do that, or to stay consistent.
Yeah.
Or to finish it out, see it through, like see the long-term vision of it. You don't trust yourself enough to evaluate the good and the bad, so you become lazy.
For sure.
You put things aside. You don't do certain things in your life.
For sure. In order to follow through on things, you have to trust that that's, like you said, something good for you. It's hard to explain that, but I can definitely understand what you guys are saying, because that's kind of what Bashar was saying too. Like you said, if you're going to shoot for something, we can relate it to Alfonso again. Alfonso probably had so many people telling him, yeah, you can't do that, you can't do this, whoop-de-whoop. Maybe it got hard a couple of times, or maybe the teams weren't looking at him. Maybe he wasn't getting phone calls, whatever the case, right? But he trusted in himself that whole time that I'm going to do this. So yeah, like you said, you have to trust in yourself to, like, almost not be lazy. But
Yeah.
it sounds easy, but it's not.
I
See,
just, go ahead.
pardon?
Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say the brain's default setting is to be lazy.
Yeah, I
Your
guess.
brain is desired to take the path of least resistance scientifically.
Uh,
Anything against that, you're forcing yourself.
What are you gonna say?
I would say also, I kind of like more when you trust yourself more, because sometimes even when you trust someone, let's say you guys build like a friendship or whatever, the littlest thing can break it so quick. Like
Yeah.
you guys can both have two major egos, and one little thing happens, and you guys don't even talk no more. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
how does that happen? Let's say you've been talking to the person for 2-3 years, whatever. One little thing can literally
Yeah.
mess everything up. So
100%.
stupid.
I'll say this: you never trusted that person.
No, you like. It's
No,
not that you don't trust that
It's plain and
person.
simple. If you trust somebody, you trust them to tell you the hard truths instead of the sweet lies.
I would say it's more so the egos. I say it's more so the ego.
But if you trust somebody, your ego has nothing to do with it. You don't need to be better than somebody you trust.
You're right, but at the same time, they want both parties want that. You know what I mean?
Then they
You're gonna
don't.
be that. You're gonna have that competitiveness in you. I want to be better than. I want to do things better than you do better than me, right? Like let's say we're having a game. You
Mhm.
want to do better than me, do you not?
Yeah, but
you know
if
what I mean?
but-
you want to win. You like yeah, it's not gonna be bad to where like you're gonna beat each other up for
Yeah.
it, but you're gonna still want to be on top. You want to do good.
I'll say this: if you trust somebody, your ego won't get in the way.
No, I agree with that. It should not
like-
be in the way.
yeah,
it
if
should
you-
not be in the way.
If you trust somebody, you also have to take the bad with the good. Like you can't expect somebody to always tell you sweet things.
No, and like
But you gotta trust that they'll always tell you the truth. However they feel, regardless of whether they feel negatively towards you or they feel happy towards you, you gotta trust that they're gonna tell you that. So if they don't like you, say, hey, you come up to me, Jackson, you're being a like, aye, maybe I am being a bitch.
Mhm.
I gotta trust
that's the
that.
thing,
I
though.
gotta trust that that's your view. I do have an ego. Obviously, I don't want to be a bitch. Obviously, I might
That's
come
what
back.
and you're
Obviously, I
gonna-
might
gonna
come
be
back.
pissed that he's gonna call you that.
I might come back with a rebuttal, like, hey, no, fuck you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But in my
But what does
head,
that cause?
but in my head, I'll be like, okay, I'll evaluate my actions. Be like, okay, was I actually being a bitch to you today? And if so, thank you for telling me. Like, it's a
Understand.
hard truth.
I
It's
don't know.
hard.
I think it's easier said than done.
It's hard to digest. But if I trust you to tell me the truth, then that's not an opinion. That's fact. What you're telling me is a fact. You're telling me that I am being a bitch, so I have to take that at the face value of what it is.
Mhm.
You're just telling me how you feel. And you can't be mad at somebody for telling you how you feel, because if you're mad at them for telling you how to feel, you don't trust them.
Mhm.
What do you say, Tyson?
No, I agree with you guys. That's a hard balance because I can relate it. Yeah, jeez Louise, I can relate to when Brianna were to say something. Say I hurt Brianna, and she tells me, "Hey, you hurt me." Instead of me getting
Mhm.
defensive,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I
Mhm.
mean, and letting my ego hop in the way, which happens all the time, and I
Mhm.
get defensive.
Shouldn't though. You should be like an open book. Like it's
Yeah.
all right if that happens. You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
That's hard to do though.
And that's when you build trust with somebody, that becomes more natural.
Yeah, but would you
You-
say a relationship like yours between your two homies is two different things though?
It is.
If you get in an argue with him, you're gonna want to win that. Do you know what I mean? You won't.
Yeah, no, I
really-
know what you're
You
saying.
won't really man up and say, "Yeah, you beat me in that one." You know what I mean? You
I don't
could
know.
though. You could, because you may not have ego. Like if you're a very nice guy, you're okay with losing. You're okay with like getting beaten that certain thing. You're gonna probably say it. You know what I mean? But sometimes I've been in situations where even when I'm not right, I still gonna fight it. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
care. It's
Just
just
because
so
it's there.
natural.
And I feel like that's just because whoever
it's
you're
bad though.
whoever you're fighting with, I don't feel like you just haven't built that level of trust with them. Like
So-
that deep level of trust where like you two are gonna help each other get better.
That should be it.
And that
You know what I
that
mean?
when you have that deep level of trust, certain arguments, certain issues, you have to realize that your ego can't be in there.
Can't.
You can't trust somebody and have an ego at the same time.
Ego is huge. Ego
'Cause-
gets in the way of trust all the time.
Because if you trust somebody, like I said, you gotta trust them to tell the truth. And if you have an ego, you don't want to hear the truth.
Mhm.
People
That's
who
true.
have an ego want to hear sweet lies.
I know what you're
They
saying.
want to hear, "Oh, you're the best.
You're
you're doing
good.
so
Like probably
good.
yes men.
Oh, you're not.
Yeah,
oh,
yes,
you're
man, for
you're,
sure.
you're not going down in value at all.
No, I know what you're
You're
saying.
just getting better."
So I want to touch on something you said. So you said that if something happens between a friendship and stuff like that, and the trust is lost, you don't think that the trust was there fully?
Depends on how it's lost. I feel if if it's lost as simply as like what Bashar's example was, like the 3-year relationship or the 5-year relationship was like the 2-year relationship is better than the 5-year relationship. I feel like in that sense, if those 2 years were better than the other 5 years, you didn't trust that person for 5 years.
Oh, I understand.
So in a sense, if you've built that relationship for 2 years and you actually built that trust, bringing it back to the vase, if you chip it, it can still be repaired.
Oh, 100%.
Little things here and there, but you never know where the other person's line is.
No, I understand.
You gotta some people might draw a line in the sand and say, you crossed this line, it's over. Regardless of how small that line may be, that's their line.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you cross
sense.
that, they can't trust you anymore.
I
Well, you're
understand.
kind of like, even if it's like kind of in a relationship thing, you guys get in an argument.